All right, so let's do a couple of other things with our dictionary so that you can get a little bit more used to them. So I think I mentioned before that your keys have to be unique. So they can't you can't have two of the same key in a dictionary. Um, so therefore, if you want to if you just can't. It has to be unique. So one of the things that you can do though is reassign the value associated with the key. So let's say that Sally moves and we want to reuse her ID for a new student that is coming in. So we want to change the key, my dict 7832 is what Sally's ID is. I'm cheating by looking over here, but we could figure that out if we didn't know what Sally's ID was. Right here is where we wrote a little bit of code to figure out what her ID was. So we could actually extend this program. Instead of just printing the K, we could do this. Let's just do this so that this would be the whole kit and caboodle. Okay, so Sally has moved. We need to reassign her ID, but the IDs are private. We can't see them. They're stored in this dictionary, and we, for whatever reason, don't have access to it. But we can query the dictionary, and we can figure out, what people's IDs are by writing this little bit of code. So if the value is equal to Sally, Sally has moved, what we want to do is reassign the key that's associated with Sally to a new value. We want to assign it to Melanie. So here, I could have, I'll show you the other way of doing it. We'll do it another way in just a second. So here I have this looks very similar to up here when we were creating our dictionary. The only difference is where we've substituted a variable in here for this actual number because we don't know what that number is. So we're looping through our dictionary. We're checking to see when the value is equal to Sally, and we're reassigning the value of that to Melanie. Now, of course, there could be more than one Sally assigned to a value. So this might not be the best way of doing it. What we might want to do is print the different keys. And of course, we probably have a last name in there. Generally speaking, when you have an ID name situation, both your ID and your name are going to be unique. You're not going to have four Sallys in there. Even if you have a Sally Smith, they usually have a different middle name or something, so you're gonna, you know, make that work. But you could imagine a scenario in which this would assign every single Sally to Melanie, which we wouldn't want necessarily to happen. So let's just print our dictionary out at this point after we have reassigned Sally's key to Melanie and make sure that that change actually occurred. And sure enough, we now see that Melanie is associated with 7832, and we didn't even have to know what this number was in order to do that. Now, of course, if we happen to know the number, let's say Melanie moves, and 7832 is an unlucky number, apparently. So we're going to now reassign that value to, let's say Tom. Tom is going to take that. And now we'll print the dictionary again to see that that got reassigned to Tom. And there you go. So Melanie here and Tom there. Okay, so that's all fine and dandy. I want to use another sort of more real world example and just show you some of the fancy things that you can do with the dictionary. So as I mentioned, typically you're looping through something and adding them to the list, or to the dictionary, sorry. Let me pull over this example from over here. So we're going to alter this example just a little bit. Um, let's start by taking just this little bit. Okay, so let's come over here, and I've got a new dictionary, and I went ahead and put some things in it. I'm going to actually take these out, but you know, this is how you might create a dictionary that already has some values in it, so you can make your dictionary from scratch. And I'll show you another example of something that you could use. But this is a common one. This is actually the example that's in your book in the section on data collection. So it's a common example. So first of all, we have this string. It's a big long sentence. Normally, you might have a whole file that you wanted to do. We're going to count the number the number of times each word occurs in the sentence. We had at least one project where we had to take a dictionary and clean it up. So that's all that this looping right here is doing. So first of all, we split the word based on the spaces, and that's what this does. So that we'll turn it into a list with spaces. I could have also just done list, same exact difference. But typically you're working with more, I'm just using one line, but typically we would have to loop through a whole line, and we would do all of this to every line. So I'm just using a single line, so I don't have to worry about that too much. So then what we do is we get rid of the commas and the periods. I sort of fudge this a little bit. Normally you have a whole you can have a whole list of things that you want to go through and get rid of. I converted everything to lowercase here because, of course, otherwise the computer is really precise. So hello with a capital H is very different from hello with a lowercase. Those look like two different words as far as it's concerned. But we want to count them both as the same word because to us it's really the same word, right? So then what I do here is I have this if statement where I check to see if the word is in my dictionary already. And if it's in my dictionary already, then I'm going to increase the value that is on the other side of that by 1. I'm going to count it, right? So that just says, all right, check to see if it's in there. And then remember this right here represents the value that's on the other side of the word. So we're using the words as keys. So when you're looping through this the first time, it's going to take the word hello, and it's going to say, is that in my dictionary? And it looks it up by keys, and of course our dictionary is empty, so it's not in there. And so blah, doesn't do anything with that. So then it moves on to the else. And the else says, okay, check to see if that word is in there. And, well, we know the word's not in there. And now I want you to assign the value of 1 to, oops, sorry about that. We're going to assign the value of 1 to this word. So hello will be hello colon 1. And if you want to see this, let's just print the dictionary at the end of every one of these loops so that you can kind of see this happening over time. So we're going to print words every time. Let's take this out so we'll see it grow. All right, so all this is going to do is count the number of words in the sentence, or a couple of sentences that we have. Okay, so this is kind of messy, but I'm going to stretch it out here so you can see it. So the first time through, let's see if we can find our first, here we go. So the first time through the loop, oops, I'm going to stop, hang on, stop. Here we go. So the first time through the loop right here, we have hello and 1, and then hello and my 1, blah, blah, blah. You can see as it keeps going, and you can see that it just adds things randomly. It doesn't care about placement. It just sticks stuff in there. So we have 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 all the way down, and it adds all the words. And let's see, do we see a 2 yet? We don't see a 2 yet. It keeps adding, keeps adding, keeps adding. Ah, I see a 2. There's a 2. That's our first 2. There's a the. Oh, and then there's world. And another, there's the again. So you can see that there's a few 2's here, so it increases all of those by 1 every time. So that's a really simple thing. And we could, if we wanted to, we can, check to see, let's see how many times, if we wanted to find out how many times the word hello appears in that sentence, we would simply check to see. So the key that I'm looking for is hello, and then it's going to print out the value associated with that key. So I'm going to run this, and it tells me over here that the word hello appears 2 times in that sentence. So that's kind of useful. And we learned how to loop through a dictionary, and we learned that you can pull just the keys, just the values, or the keys and the values together. And you can loop through any one of those because they're just lists. They just generate lists. So what if we wanted to put these words in order? If we wanted to put, let's start with an easier way to do it. Let's put them in alphabetical order. We don't care about the number of times it appears, but we want to print out a list, a neat printing of these words and the number of times they occur in alphabetical order. Well, our dictionary is not in any order whatsoever. Lists have an order, but they're in the order that stuff is put into them. So if we generate this word list, in fact, let's just do this. Let's say that we want to, if I were to print words.keys, which should be a list of all the keys in my word list, you can see here that it's not in any particular order. I've got have and then visited, and then it goes and is here, so it's not in alphabetical order. You can sort, though, a list. So using just sort. It's yelling at me. Can you see that? That's because we're not generating it. So let's let's call this alphabetical, since that's what we're going to do. You have to assign that to a variable so that it keeps it. And then you can sort it. So we're going to sort it, and then we're going to print it. So sort is just a function. It doesn't return anything. But once you do sort, then your list that function has been, the function has done its thing to the list. So you now have an alphabetical list of words. So let's do that. All right, so you can see here, we printed the original words.keys, that's right here, so you can see that it was not in alphabetical order. And then now it is in alphabetical order. So that's kind of handy, but we don't have the associated values with it. So if we wanted to do that, we just need to include the values in our sorting. Well, let's just do this. So I just changed this so that we're now pulling both. We're using items, .items instead of .keys. So that will pull both the keys and the values. Now sort is going to sort on the first value in that pair. So since that's keys, it should sort it alphabetically. So voila, we now have a list of pairs sorted alphabetically. Now that's not very pretty, so let's loop through that list and print it out so that it looks a little nicer instead of just the list. So we're just gonna sort through. Now remember, we have two things. See, if you look over here, we have these. This is a tuple, and we have a word and a number. So we have two things. It's just like this is a. We've turned this into a list, but it has the same exact data and same structure as the dictionary that we were working with before. So all we're going to do is print these things one at a time. We're going to print. I'm just going to be very simple about it. So that'll print first the word and then the value associated with it, and I'll print it one per line. That way it'll be nice and neat. So voila, as you can see, we now have an alphabetical list of the words. So that's handy. So another thing that you could do, let's say we want to print it in the order, from most frequently used word to least frequently used word. We just have to figure out a way to flip the values with the keys, right? Quite simple. We're going to loop through our dictionary again. So I'm using the same variables here. We're going to loop through everything. The only difference is, well, let's make us we need a new list because we're going to save our reversed pairs. We're going to put the value first and then the key, and we're going to save them in a special list. So we know how to add things to a list, right? Ordered.append. And we know that we want to save it so that we can sort the list by value instead of key. So we're going to put the value in first because it sorts by the first item in that tuple. And I need an extra. So I'm going to just recreate this list. There's no automatic way to do it. I'm going to loop through the dictionary. I'm going to take the keys. The key comes first, and then the value. And then when I add it to the list, I'm going to switch them around so that I put the value in first and then the key. So let's just stop there and print the list as it is after it goes through that loop. Alrighty. Okay. I used the wrong list. It worked, just not the right list. Where we want to go through words. All right, there we go. Now we have our list. So it's not in order yet, but we do have our value, that is the number of times the word occurs, and then we have the word. So now all we need to do is put that in order. Well, we want the most frequent thing first. If I were to sort the list now, it would put the least frequent thing first because it goes, alphabetical from least to most, from A to Z, from 0 to 100. But luckily, there's a handy dandy little thing that we can do with our sort function that will allow us to sort in reverse chronological order. So we used the sort function before, but now we're going to tell it to put it in reverse. So we just put inside the parentheses reverse equals true, and then we'll end up with this list over here. So let's just run it, and voila, we now have all the 2's at the beginning followed by the 1's. So now we have a loop down here. We've got our list sorted in reverse order. We're going to loop through that list. I just did it this way. I put these variables because the count comes first and then the word, but I'm going to print the word and then the count. And then you'll see that it prints this list with those in order. So there you go. So that's just an example of something a little more complex that you could do with a dictionary.